My Stihl MS210 Resurrection. Was it worth it to get a non-running saw and bring it back together? This saw, I'm sure, when I put it away probably 8 years ago, I'm sure it was just due to running issues. Probably it wasn't ran enough, so I'm sure there was carburetor issues. So that's where I was going to start. So I did a compression test. Compression test checked out great. It was 165 pounds. Decided, okay, let's see what happens. Went online, couldn't find a carburetor for it, a factory carburetor for it. The fuel kits, and I really didn't want to put a carburetor kit in it. So I saw a kit that came with a carburetor, air filter, fuel lines, pretty much a full kit to get it going. And I'm like, well, let's see how one of these little cheap kits work. I was really curious. So I bought the kit. I think it's like $15.99. Shipped to the house, plus tax, and got the kit in. The kit looked pretty decent. Went ahead and ordered a chain. This thing needed a new chain. The bar was in perfect shape, just about, had almost no wear at all. So I went ahead and ordered an Oregon chain as well, and installed the kit. Kit's probably a 8 out of 10. I did have to do a little cleanup on the intake, which was just a sandpaper on a flat plate for 10 seconds. Got that done, bolted it on, and put the carburetor in, fuel lines, chain on, fired it up, and to my surprise, after about 3 pulls, it ran, it idled. It did need a little bit of adjustment, but after a small amount of adjustment, this thing runs just as good as it did that I can remember when it was new. I put almost a tank of fuel through it, cutting up a tree. Thing runs perfect, runs as good as it ever has that I can remember. I've got about $15.99 in the carburetor kit, about $23-ish for the chain, about $3 in cleaning supplies, the $2 for a pull start cord, and I believe that's all I've got in it. So the total I think was around under $45 for everything to get this saw going again using my labor. Probably took me 2.5 to 3 hours total. And I really personally, considering that the replacement saw for this right now equivalent is an MS211, and that saw retails for $289. Still have to add tax, so you're looking at close to a $300 saw, and I got this thing going back, runs just as good as new for about $45. So if you've never done it with one of these things, I'd recommend at least giving it a try before you go buy another $300 saw if you have time. And I'll go ahead and put the link in the description to the parts I used on it. I'm definitely satisfied with what I got. I've got more chainsaws I'm going to be doing this to and seeing if they work out the same way. But this one turned out well. Hello, Padme. Say hi. Yeah. So appreciate it if you guys just subscribe and like and hit the notification bell. I throw out all kinds of videos. I do some riding, motorcycle riding, working on various items. So sure would appreciate it, and thanks a lot. Hope this helps somebody. This MS210 doesn't run. I'm getting ready to go through it, see if I can't get this chainsaw going, and either decide if I want to keep it or sell it. But I'm going to go ahead and go through it and show you guys kind of what I'm doing. Removing the air filter housing, removing the actual air filter. That's pretty nasty looking. That's your air deflector. We want to check the now we want to check compression on this Stihl MS210. We're at 165. Little pin holds this on still there. It's still in good shape. It definitely needs cleaned up. But I'm worried about function when I get done with this thing. These have set quite a long time. That old oil is just hard. And pop this bar off. Clutch spins free. There's just a little bit of wear. It's pretty obvious. This is definitely a low hour machine as well. Tip feels nice and smooth, and I'm actually looking at the wear on the bar, and this bar hardly has any wear. It even doesn't have any sharp edges on it at all. And the bar's good shape. We're not going to worry about replacing the bar on this one. Okay, we need to remove the intake. Looks nice and clean in the carburetor throat. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking an acid brush. Let me get the fuel line off of here. There we go. Pull up that handle. Now we want to remove the throttle rod. Just kind of lightly pry up from the bottom. It'll twist out and it'll twist. Okay, remove the to remove the choke rod. Operate your choke to the full choke position. And you slide that rod out just like that. The carburetor will slide out of there. Carburetor gasket is broken. Then we take the muffler off. So you can see through that pretty good. Okay, I'm going to look in the exhaust port and get my, there's no scarring in the back of the cylinder. The port itself is it's dirty, but there's no buildup actually blocking the port itself. Look at the intake side. Piston looks really good. No scoring at all, none whatsoever. Everything's nice and clean. Intake port looks very clean. There's no dirt in there. Lifting it up, pulling it down, just like so. Inside this cup where the starter runs, nothing's hardly worn right there. That looks really good. Not too worried about it where the pull start's going to grab. Clutch feels a little stiff on this one. Let me go ahead and put these in a bag. Look at this pull start. The little dog right there that comes out and catches your pull start, it looks like it's in really good shape. Pull cord itself, I'm going to be replacing it. It's getting frayed, so. Now the clutch is not worn. It's just stiff, like, you know, old grease, and you know, it's probably got old oil behind there. So we're going to look, make sure that needle bearing's in good shape. Inside of the drum looks good. It's just a little dirty. So yeah, after this thing gets cleaned, it's going to be, all I'm going to have to do, there's no rust at all on that needle bearing. Whoops. All right, that's as far as this one needs to be torn down. Now I've got my 210 here cleaned up good enough to go ahead and start reassembling it. It was in, I mean, nasty shape. I've got a lot of work to do. I'm replacing all the fuel lines. I bought a kit. Let's see what all's in this thing. It has a lot of components in it. Let's see what all we got in here. And I'm just going to try to see how this kit does straight out of the box. I'm going to use everything, including the spark plug, to see what we've got going on. It's got the air intake. Right now, this actually looks fairly well fitted. I'll compare it to the stock one before I put it on. Clicks in pretty tight for the air filter. The fibers seem to be pretty well attached. I'm not seeing a whole lot of overspill. What we got in here? carburetor. Filter, the intake to the cylinder, which I will look and see. I don't know that I want to tear that one, the factory one out. Okay, this is fuel line. There's the other one, the return. I have the exhaust gasket, which does have metal in it. Fuel or oil line, I'll double check it when I pull it apart. The intake gasket, which mine is going to need. And I'm assuming that's going to be the filter for the oil. Fuel lines on this thing, so let's see how easy and or hard this thing is. And just pry it up. Which I've got loose. And I believe that I'll be able to work it up through that hole. There we go. All right. Now let me look at it. Now, one thing I've noticed, the flexibility of this thing is getting a little on the stiff side. It's factory hose. Okay, it does have a flat side. Now, one thing I've noticed here on the aftermarket, your filter has a smaller diameter that goes in here. But I believe this would still go in your factory filter if you wanted to, but I'm just going to use the entire kit as is. Now I'm going to take a little bit of oil and put on that before I work it down in that hole. That will definitely make things seal up considerably better. Got orientation correct here. Get my flathead screwdriver again. Poke it through the orange part. Try not to tear a hole in anything. Okay. All right, I'm taking my hemostats and I'm pulling down on the inside of the tank up close to the top of the hose with my flathead screwdriver. I'm going in right in between here and pushing down at the same time a little bit on the top of that flange part of that hose. And then you'll know when it's seated, you'll look right in there in between the tank and the handle assembly. You'll look in there and you can see where this upper flange part seats on the top of the plastic tank. This is inside the tank. That's the hole of the tank, is right there in that area. If you pull it through, just do it again. Okay. Now that I've got that on there, I've got my hemostats were up real close to the top, so I need to reset them. Let me grab my fuel line now. Take this fuel filter, this larger one that it came with, plug her in. Fits nice and snug. I don't think that's going to fall off. Put the intake gasket on, which I did check. It is the correct size. Okay, it's on there. Let's put the carburetor on. Just getting it started a little bit so I can connect my throttle rods. Okay, there we go. Yep, that'll be fine once it's on. Just taking my throttle rod, putting it underneath the carburetor, working it into the slot and pivot, and that'll be ready to go on the throttle in a second. You'll slip it right in here into your handle. And then while that carburetor is still loose, you can pivot this around. This top part fits in this notch. like so, and then it'll lock in as you push your carburetor into place. So finish pushing your carburetor in, and it locks that rod into place, and you're in that on and off switch. Okay, that looks good. All right. Okay, push your carburetor all the way down, and then attach your throttle linkage right there. Snaps in. Okay, I think you can probably see that in the photograph where I've got the fuel line pushed all the way in. This goes over your speed, your idle speed. This one goes back here. With this aftermarket carburetor on here, this rubber piece doesn't quite fit correctly. And the part I'm trimming off here is the part that goes over the low speed. And it's not going to have a negative effect for me trimming this off, even if for some reason that I'm unable to use this aftermarket carburetor and have to go back with the factory. Trimming this off is not going to negatively affect anything. And I can actually see both. I can look through here and see both circuits. So I should be able to adjust it as needed. And yep, it's lined up with my throttle speed, so that part's good. I am seeing a little bit of residual plastic right here. I'm going to hit that with just a little bit of sandpaper and see if that'll flush up. Okay. Put it on a flat stone with a piece of sandpaper. Now I've got a sealing surface. I can see I've got a pretty good sealing surface all the way around this thing now, so I feel pretty good with this. I think it'll work just fine. Yeah, that is nice and flush now, so I'm going to go ahead, put it on. Okay, it fits rather nicely. Fits like it's supposed to be there. Tighten that assembly down. I'm going to go ahead and put the throttle handle back on. It just slips in those grooves right there. And then the screw goes in the bottom of the handle. Check out this H&H spark plug. Woo, looks pretty good. Needs to be gapped. Doing a spark plug on this thing is definitely going to be easier to do with the air filter out and the air deflector out. Okay, I'm just getting it tight enough to crush the crush washer on the spark plug. Plug that back in. Put my air deflector back in. This is in the warm position. Right now we're going to go ahead and put it in the warmer position. Okay, it actually fits really nice. We'll put the back cover back on. Oh yeah, when you do this, the on-off switch has to be all the way down in the full choke position. To slip it on. I'm gonna get some more pull rope for this thing, the right size pull rope. The stuff I have is actually too big for it. So we'll come back and do another video on just changing the pull rope on this thing. It's pretty easy to do. Just pull the handle back out of your way. You gotta slip this under here, pull the handle out of the way, slip that under, and it'll fall right into position. This drops back in. Put your cup in right there, and then a screw. Just get them all started a little bit. Or the original studs. One's going in right here. Exhaust gasket. Okay, that looks right. Slip on the exhaust. Spark arrestor screen's actually in pretty darn good shape. We'll take the clutch drum. The bearing actually looks really pretty clean. So I'm going to take a little bit of, I'm actually going to use just a touch. You don't want to get a whole lot of oil inside that clutch drum. Even though it's metal to metal, it'll grip. But this is a little bit of motor oil, just real light motor oil I'm putting on that bearing. Oh yeah, feels pretty good. Make sure I don't have any residual, and I do not. So it looks good, none inside the clutch. Okay, it's time to pop that circlip back on there. Get your circlip started. Take some needle nose, pop it into place. Cover back on. I'm just working that chain, make sure it's in line. Pretty loose still. Okay, we are ready to fuel it up and try it. Saw did good. Did it. And thanks a lot. hope this helps somebody.